I'm a homeschool mom to, well, I have 4 little girls, but I have 2 students, and we are wrapping up our school year. We did first grade this year and then TK for my second daughter, which was kind of her like kindergarten light year. And I wanted to go through and do our homeschool year in review and kind of talk about what we did this year, what curriculum we used, what worked for us, what we are going to be tweaking a little bit next year, and just kind of go through some highlights. This was actually really fun to prepare and reflect back on the year that we had. I feel like this was our first like very solid year where my daughter being in first grade, it's like full-blown, we are doing school. It's a little less casual. It was definitely more regimented with all 4 subjects, where we were doing science, social studies, math, and reading very consistently, and I feel like we nailed down curriculum that we liked, so I just want to get into it. So I'm going to start off by subject. I'm going to start with math and reading, and I'm going to break it down between my 2 daughters. I have my handy dandy Notion here, so if I'm referring to my phone, it's because I took notes on all of these things. So to start the year, we will talk about math, and we began our year for my oldest doing Singapore math. We have used dimensions for kindergarten and first grade. So this year she was doing dimensions 1A for semester 1 and 1B for semester 2. And 1A went well. She wasn't like obsessed with math. It's just not like her favorite subject to begin with. But we started 1B for the second semester, and we kind of came to a hang up where I was realizing that it was moving on to more advanced topics, like starting to do double-digit addition and regrouping and stuff like that, but she was not solid on her like basic addition and subtraction facts yet. So I heard a lot of people say really good things about math with confidence. So this is kind of what we switched to mid-year. We didn't fully abandon Singapore. I'll talk about how we came back to it, but we took a pause on Singapore to nail down the basics with math with confidence. We played a lot of their games, and she did, I'd say, like 3/4 of this workbook. We left off, this is what she did, this is what she didn't do. So this was really great because this is a much easier curriculum, and this gave her just tons of practice on the basics, counting by 2s, counting by 5s, counting by 10s, tons of just basic addition and subtraction. And this was a good like month or 2-month pause from Singapore. And when she resumed Singapore, which is the curriculum that ultimately I think is a better fit for us, this is what I want them to continue with. I think it's more aligned with grade level standards and stuff. She was ready to go with this. She did so well with 1B because she had gotten her math facts really solid. So math with confidence would serve as like a really great warm-up or a more gentle math curriculum. But we are just about ready to finish Singapore 1B, which is really exciting. Now that we are at the end of the year, she has proficiency in word problems, in subtracting and adding 2 double-digit numbers. She can be like 47 plus 34 and can do that with ease. She has done telling time, she has done money, she has done fractions. She has done the early stages of multiplication and division, where she is taking a certain amount and either putting them in groups of 4 or in 4 even groups and figuring out how many, which is obviously laying the foundation for multiplication and division. And she has soared through this. We have like honestly probably 4 days worth of math if she sat down and really focused on this, and that is Singapore. So we did basically 3/4 of math with confidence for her, and then all of Singapore dimensions, and we will be continuing with Singapore dimensions for next year. And my youngest daughter, or my second daughter, she did a similar thing where we started with the Singapore dimensions KA for her, and this is a super, super gentle curriculum. Like you can see in the beginning, it's cross out the thing that does not go with the others. And, you know, match the number of fingers they're holding up to how many flowers there are. It's very, very gentle, and she cruised through this. And then we started KB, which is the second semester of kindergarten, and it was starting to do like addition, like, what am I trying to say? Number sentences and stuff. And I decided, why not just slow it down a little bit for her, because she's not even technically in her like kindergarten year legally. So I got the Math with Confidence kindergarten, and she did this entire curriculum. So she did all of KA, part of KB, and then this whole book. And we're gonna resume KB for her like formal kindergarten year. She's turning 6 like at the beginning of the next school year. So she will do KB and then move on to the first grade Singapore likely at that point, depending on her pace and stuff. But this again was just a really good pace for her, really self-led. I didn't do like all of the games with her because most of these concepts were super self-explanatory. By the end of this, it got to the point where it was like 10 and 3, 10 and 4. There was a little bit of telling time in here. See, this is like measuring things with blocks, like how many blocks tall is this robot? Which of these cats is bigger? And then the most advanced stuff that it had at the end was like telling time, and then some like basic addition and subtraction. So I really liked Math with Confidence. I think that's a great curriculum to start with for kindergarten, and then eventually move into Singapore. And I still might utilize Math with Confidence for my girls as like a warm-up and just to like review the basics and stuff, but it's not something that I want to use exclusively. I will say that for my 5.5-year-old, it was really cool because she went from having no skill in writing numbers or even really recognizing numbers beyond like maybe 1 through 5 to being able to write numbers 1 through 20, recognize all of those, do basic addition sentences like 5 plus 4 and stuff like that, and having different strategies, including 10 frames and counters and all of that to add. And it seemed to come really naturally to her, which was really awesome. I think that we still will continue with some of the math games for Math with Confidence. I really like those, and I like, you know, the whole idea of utilizing games to supplement math. I actually have a couple books up here that are by Kate Snow, the author of Math with Confidence, Addition Facts That Stick and Subtraction Facts That Stick. There's also multiplication and division ones, and those would be a good like supplementary option as well. So let's move on to language arts. And first I'm going to talk about my younger daughter who was in her TK year, and this is the year that we started Logic of English with her. Logic of English is the one curriculum that I will shout from the rooftops that I think everyone should use. I feel like most homeschool curriculum, I'm like, there's a million good options, but this for teaching your kids to read is so amazing. So we started with Foundations A, which they don't need any like prior knowledge to, and she did a really great job with that. It teaches all the phonograms, so you show them the letter A on the card, and it's this is ah, and for O, it's this is o, S is z, and it teaches all the sounds right from the beginning, and then it slowly builds on that, utilizing phonemic awareness in syllables and segmentation and reblending the word back together, so they're eventually reading CVC words and spelling them. And now we finished Foundations A in one semester, and we are, I'd say, like maybe a third of the way through Foundations B. And like I said, I'm not really rushing this with her because this wasn't even technically her kindergarten year. And I feel like with something like building the base for reading and phonemic awareness and stuff, I'd rather go slow and at her pace, and she just developmentally wasn't ready for a ton of formal work until the second half of this year. So we are part of the way through Foundations B, and now every single phonogram of the alphabet, like the 26 basic phonograms, she has like down immediately, all the sounds, and she's moving into the territory of learning like SH, CH, IGH, double E, AY, ER, like all of those digraphs and the 2-letter phonograms, which is really expanding her ability to read. And it's really cool because she finally is at the point where she will pick up like an early reader book and read it and has the confidence of like, oh shoot, like I actually do know how to read a lot of these words. And I feel like once that clicks, it builds really quickly, because my oldest, once she got to that point, just took off. So we will probably go at a slow pace and continue this a little bit through summer, and then we will finish that up in the fall and then continue moving through the foundations. Typically it would be like A and B for kindergarten, B and C for first grade, but because of the whole TK thing, she's kind of on a different level. So that's been really exciting. And then my oldest, who had first grade this year, she did Foundations C for semester 1 and Foundations D for semester 2, and we actually finished D a lot faster. We utilized the online supplement version for like half of this, which is so great. It's like a very low stimulation way of them teaching the lesson online. You have to buy it in addition to this. So she did a lot of that on her own because we had already gotten to the point where she was reading fluently. It was more just like fine tuning with those like specialized phonograms and for more like grammar and parts of speech and stuff. But watching my oldest daughter finish C and then move on to Foundations D, she is reading books that are at like the 5th grade level. It is so incredible to see, and she's skipping a whole year of spelling curriculum because this has put her in such an amazing place with spelling and stuff. I cannot sing the praises of this enough now that I've graduated a student from the Foundations program. It is really the most incredible curriculum, and now she has spent her entire morning, the last like 4 hours, reading under the table chapter books like Ramona and Beezus, like Beverly Cleary books. She's reading American Girl books. She's reading anything she picks up, and just watching that world open up to her because of this has been so incredibly wonderful. So I love this so much. I really like Foundations D also because it starts to do early grammar. So there are parts of speech, there's sentence structure, there's subject-verb agreement, there are plurals, there are the rules for adding suffixes and prefixes, and it really becomes more well-rounded, as well as more spelling words than like Foundation C, and more robust like spelling lists that utilize all the rules. So this has been really awesome. So in addition to our language arts curricula, we have done a ton of read alouds and novel studies this year. This is a huge thing for us. We're a big read aloud family, and I read every morning over breakfast with my girls. And this year we read so many books. There were a few like series that were standouts. And one of our biggest things for this whole year was the Wild Robot series. This was like one of my highlights of the school year. We read all 3 of the Wild Robot books. The next one comes out next month, and we cannot wait. My girls have never been as invested in a series. I have never loved a children's book read aloud, aside from Charlotte's Web, this much. We loved it. I cried. They wanted to draw pictures and watch the movie all the time and listen to the soundtrack. It was so fun, so perfect for their age. I love these books. We got the like set of them, and the covers are just like this, so I had my girls like decorate them and do their own covers based on like what is in the book, which was really fun. So now we have like these special versions of these books that ended up being really special to us, and we love those. We read every morning over breakfast, and then usually throughout the day we did a bunch of like little wild robot art projects that went with it. We did like novel studies that I found on TPT, like writing prompts and stuff about it, especially for my first grader. My younger daughter doesn't do as much of that stuff, but she was really like into this project. Is this Rosie's right here? Is this Lucy's? This is Lucy's. So this was one of her book reports that she did for it on this like trifold thing. So she drew pictures of it, and then we open it up and it has like the plot, the characters, all of that. And these were just really fun for them. Okay, this is Rosie's. This is my 5.5-year-old's version of it, which is incredible. They stayed up late in their room working on these, and it was just really fun. So that was a huge highlight of our year. We also read the first few Boxcar Children books, which were really great. We read the entire Heartwood Hotel series, which is 4 like full-length chapter books. Those were awesome too. We did some book reports for those. This one is from Lit House Learning, and it's like a little lap book, and in here it says like events at the Heartwood Hotel, and then you pull out the little things and characters, and it has like character descriptions under here. Lit House Learning is a really great resource for novel studies, but you can find lap books and stuff like that on Teachers Pay Teachers. This is another one for one of the Wild Robot books. So we just did a lot of fun projects revolving around this. So the Wild Robot series, the Heartwood Hotel series, we read the first 3 of the Boxcar Children book. We read the first 2, or we're on the second of the Doll People series. We also read tons of little standalone chapter books. We read like 3 of the Kitty and the Midnight Adventure series. We read 100 Dresses, Dolphin Adventure, Anna Hibiscus. We read a lot of books, and it was a really, really good year, and those were just the ones that I read aloud to them, and my oldest has read through like dozens on her own too. Now that my oldest is reading very proficiently, she's like blowing through books, and I actually just made a TikTok sharing like some of the books that she's really loving right now, but she had read through a lot of graphic novels, like the Magic Treehouse ones, The Babysitter's Little Sister, Secret Garden, some of the Disney ones just from the library. In the series that she's really latched onto, she started with like Billy B. Brown, Magic Treehouse, Zoe and Sassafras, some of like the easier, simpler ones like the Dragon Masters, the Owl Diaries, those like shorter ones. Now she's really enjoying the Boxcar Children, the Nancy Drew Clue Crew, the American Girl chapter books, including the Historical Mysteries are her favorite. And she's just kind of, and Roald Dahl books, and she's just like in that world now, which is really cool. So as far as social studies and history went, I have really kind of mentally grappled with which route that I want to take for this, because there are so many different strategies for teaching history, different timelines that you can approach. Some people don't even think that it's like worth teaching formal history to such young kids because it's a very abstract concept. So I went back and forth, and ultimately I decided that for this year, when they were first and kinder for all intents and purposes, that geography would be a very good idea because it would give them some context and global perspective once we enter history. Because I thought, what is the point of learning about ancient Egyptian civilization if they have no idea what the continents are, or where in the world Africa even is, or how these things relate to each other, or where Greece is when we're learning about the Greeks, or even like the concept of the United States. So I decided to go with the Waldock Way Traveling the World curriculum, and this was so fun for us. This was definitely one of the highlights of first semester. We just did it for the most part for the first semester, and then we kind of fizzled off and worked on some like other random social studies topics for semester 2. But the one that we used is the Waldock Way Traveling the World. I love their studies. I love the format. It basically gives you a few spines, which are your main books that you're going to use. And then every week there's a different country, and for that country you are going to fill out a flag profile, a country profile with like stats and stuff about it. You're going to do an animal profile for it, a coloring page, and then they link lots of picture books that you could get. So we got a lot of those from the library to like really bring it to life. The pages to read out of like the spine books. There's optional art projects and recipes and all sorts of things, and it was super fun. So I'm going to quickly rattle off all the countries that we got through, and it was like half of them. So I think we're going to do the other half this year. We just didn't want to stick with just doing a country a week all year. We just got kind of bored with it. So the countries that we did were Egypt, Mali, Morocco, Nigeria, South Africa, Tanzania, China, Japan, India, Israel, Thailand, England, and a little bit of France. So we got through a lot of countries, which was really great. And then in the second half of the year, like I said, we kind of did like an assortment of random history and social studies topics. I get a list from our charter school of topics that we like should cover for each grade level. And a lot of it is things like then and now. So we learned about like what transportation used to be like and what it is now, how communication used to happen versus now. a lot of stuff like that, a lot of like cultural like things around the world, which we had really good context with because of this. This book is our favorite out of all the books that we use for geography, Children Just Like Me. This is like showing profiles of kids who live all over the world and how they do things differently. Like, what does Hafsa do for fun in South Africa? And it goes all around the world and shows like profiles of kids, which really helps it be a less abstract concept. So we did stuff like that. We did a little bit about Native Americans, like the Nez Perce people. We did the unit study from Little School of Smiths for the Kaya American Girl Native American book. And that was really great. And my oldest just had a strong interest in learning about indigenous people. So we focused on that for a little while. We talked about historical figures. We talked about space exploration and Sally Ride. We talked about some women in history. We also just did a lot of stuff that was like topical as it came up, which for these years for social studies is totally fine in my opinion. So some things that we did like little honed in unit studies on were things like 9/11. When 9/11 happened, we dove a lot more into that than we ever had, talked about it, did projects, read a lot of books. We had wildfires in our area at the beginning of the last school year, so we got to like talk about the impacts of wildfires and the different technology, and we got to go out to the reservoir and watch the like helicopter swoop up the water, and we got to watch the flames from the trail behind our house, which was quite the experience. We also talked about historic Black figures during Black History Month, historical like women in history. We have a lot of Yodo cards that cover social studies topics, so they ended up learning a lot about like earthquakes that changed the course of history and things like ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, famous authors and playwrights. We love the Ladybird Yodo cards for that. And then we just have a ton of like the Little People Big Dreams books. So we got a pretty like well-rounded view of history. And next year we're gonna start doing, or for social studies, next year we're doing more like history honed in. But this year was like geography and just like touching on a lot of historical topics. A couple other fun things that we did for history actually were touring a fire station. My dad's a fire captain and we got to go and do like a fire station tour and like a demo with the hose and the equipment and all of that, which was fun. We also did a field trip with our co-op to Trader Joe's and got to see how a grocery store works, and those count as social studies in the early years. So as far as science goes, we kind of did the same strategy where we did something different for semester 1 than semester 2, and semester 1 was more like a continuous curriculum and semester 2 is more pieced together. So we did Blossom and Roots level 1 science for semester 1, and it was largely focused on rocks, minerals, fossils, landforms, a little bit of weather events, tectonic plates, stuff like that. So very like earth science, heavy on like the rocks and minerals. So that was really fun. I love the format of this curriculum. I'm trying to not do like curriculum reviews on here, but we focused on that and we kind of condensed that down into one semester because there was like 6 different weeks about rocks that we were really able to just kind of like condense more. I thought that I had some of our little science sheets in this one. It might be in the other binder, but we really, really enjoyed that. Her format for those lessons is so wonderful because it's like key points. And then if you're a book basket family, here are a bunch of books about the topic. If you are like an experiment family, here's experiments to do. And then they would fill out like a little lab sheet for it each week about what they learned. And I feel like it was the perfect science curriculum. Let me show you what some of the sheets look like. So this was my 5.5-year-old who was not really writing at the beginning of the year. So this was ever moving plates, and we did like a fun tectonic plate activity and stuff for this week. And then I would write exactly word for word what she was saying about what she learned, and then they would do a picture. So I have a handful of these tectonic plates. This is mountains and rifts. We have earthquakes right here. So that was really great, and we're going to be using one of their science studies again next year. And then after that, we were just kind of burnt out on like the rocks and minerals and stuff. So we moved on to just kind of piecing it together largely with digital resources, which is not something I do a ton in our homeschool, but we ended up using Generation Genius, which is a great subscription website that we have access to through our charter. They have really engaging videos with corresponding worksheets on tons of science topics for different grades, as well as math topics, like fun educational videos about fractions, and they're like in a lab. It's a really high production value, really engaging videos. So we loved those, and we basically burned through all the grade level videos in that way. And those cover a lot of topics that I don't naturally cover, because when we're in the backyard and stuff, it's like, yeah, the bees are pollinators, you know, they're doing this, and that's whatever, like nature-y stuff. But a lot of those videos were about magnets and sound waves and hearing and gravity and, you know, like mass and volume, like topics that I just don't like naturally stumble upon in day-to-day life. So I love that. We also utilized Mystery Science in the second half of the year, and this is another online platform that's used by a lot of public school teachers, but I think it's becoming more popular for homeschool. And this is also video format. They're like longer videos or like a series of videos, again, very well produced, very nice videos. And then they have corresponding activities. So they would watch a video about how animals have adaptations, and they would learn about birds' beaks, and they would have all these little cards, and they'd have to like be prompted by the video to figure out which birds eat which type of food based on their beak. And then I would give them like tweezers and tongs and little like seeds on the table, and they would have to try to pick them up and sort them. So it was really engaging, really fun, a great option if you want something digital. I don't think that we will use that as like the main part of our science next year, because there's so many science curriculums that I'm excited about, but that was a very, very fun option, and I would highly recommend it. It's really great content, and I can see us continuing to supplement with that. Okay, I have some additional notes about science things that we did too, so if I'm looking at my phone, that's why. We had the KiwiCo crates come this year, which are a great STEM activity where they are building something. My husband built those, and those were a gift from a family member. The girls really loved those. We did a lot of the National Geographic like science kits. When we were doing the rocks and minerals units with Blossom and Root, my girls got very, very into rocks and minerals. They still are, in like fossils, seashells, sea glass, all of that. And we got like some of the crack your own geode kits and stuff like that. They really, really enjoyed those kits. We also had just some of the basic ones where it's like more chemical experiments, and they had fun with those. We also did specific unit studies on things like mammals and backyard bugs, where they did little research projects about animals and showed like the ecosystem of our backyard, the different insects and the plants that they are hosted by. The mammal project was really fun, so my daughter did like a flip book contrasting mammals with other animals, and then a profile for a few different ones. That was great. And our co-op also touches on mostly science topics. So our co-op is more of like a gentle lesson and then highly social gathering. So they will do a lesson where it's like they're talking about summer fruits. They will talk about like how a fruit grows, the different parts of the fruit. They will do like a little like hands-on activity or craft or art related thing, and then the kids will play. But that did give us like more exposure and like little activities related to seasonal topics and science like that. As far as like random things that we did this year, it's so hard to obviously sum it all up, but we did some artist and composer studies, and I got some of these ideas from Blossom and Root, and then we just kind of went with it. We studied Monet in depth, and we have like a whole collection of Monet books now. Monet's my favorite artist, and we recreated a lot of his paintings. We did like watercolor versions, we did pastel versions, we did online tutorials, we watched documentaries about his life, we watched the tour of his home in Giverny, we did all sorts of Monet related stuff. That was really fun. And we did the same with Van Gogh. There are so many beautiful picture books about these artists, so that was really fun. We did Yayoi Kusama, and we did a recreation of some of her artwork and learned about her. And then again, my girls have Yodo cards covering things like famous authors, artists, playwrights, all of that, and they really have gathered a ton of knowledge from listening to those. That's like what they like to listen to before bed. So we did those. We also learned a little bit about Mozart, a little bit about, what was it? Was it Bach? I don't know, another composer, and they had a lot of fun with that, or Beethoven, I don't know, one of those. So we did some artist studies and recreations. We also did art lessons in person and online. The online website, I forget what it's called, but there's some like watercolor lessons. And then there's so many just like fun YouTube tutorials like Art for Kids Hub, Artsy with Mariah, Draw So Cute, that have like art tutorials and things. We also did some handicrafts this year, like a little knitting and crocheting. Now that my oldest is getting to the point where she can be a little more self-directed with these things, it's really nice. But she learned to finger knit this year. She learned to do some like preliminary like knitting with actual needles, and same with crocheting. She's really into like yarn projects and stuff. She also did some weaving on a loom, and then just like finger weaving little like baskets with a template. That was really fun for her, and watercolor and sculpting as always. And we had a good year with extracurriculars out of the house too. Like I mentioned that we're part of a co-op, and it's not like a highly academic meet 3 times a week and like study, you know, like do all of our social studies together. It's more of a casual, like cute little lesson and get the kids together and do little field trips. And we did that for a lot of the year, as many Fridays as we could make. We were sick a lot this year, but that was an extracurricular. My older girls also did an entire year of swimming lessons, and that was really amazing. That took my oldest daughter from not being able to swim half the pool length to being able to freestyle, breaststroke, backstroke. She's like the pre-swim team level now, and my second daughter can swim half the pool length, and then I'm getting the bottom 3 will go back into swimming lessons in the fall. My older 2 also stayed in art lessons all year. It's a local studio art lesson where they start with pastels, they do charcoal, they do acrylic painting, gel painting, sculpting, and they've brought home so many amazing projects. That's been a really great way for them to deepen their friendships with other kids, a constant social thing that's on the calendar every week, and they really love that. I love watching their little art bloom. And then we are starting a new extracurricular actually in a few days, and they're starting horseback riding, which I'm so excited about. We're taking a little break from swim to try horseback riding, and I can't wait for that and to see like kind of what sticks with them and what they want to continue through the school year. I feel like 2 activities per kid is kind of my happy medium, plus co-op, so that's kind of our plan. I'm really happy with how the school year went. We had a lot of fun, engaging things. I don't feel like I had to be overly organized. I don't feel like I was stressed trying to do it all. I feel like we had seasons where it was like heavy on one subject and we were able to ebb and flow, but we were still able to have a really great year. My girls made so many academic gains, and I feel like it is just so underrated watching your kid learn right in front of you and helping to facilitate that. Like watching both of my girls be able to pick up a book and read now could absolutely make me burst into tears. It's one of the most special experiences I've had in my entire motherhood journey, and I'm really happy with how things went this year. Next year, I do have a few tweaks that I want to make, like focusing more on history, being a little more organized with like planning and more specifically record keeping, things like that. But overall, it was such a wonderful year. I can't wait to have a little bit of a pause for summer to like get excited again, prep things. I've been like organizing my stash of stuff. And then we will be back for 2nd grade and our formal kindergarten year in the fall. And I will be doing more like pre-K stuff with my 3.5-year-old in the fall too, which will be really fun. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions about anything that I mentioned, I will try to link as many things as I can in the description box, but feel free to comment, and we will chat again next time. Bye.